evening and welcome to Fashion and Lifestyle. I'm Siobhan Harton and I'm here with Patrick Walsh. And Patrick is an Oscar Wilde fanatic, so it is. Patrick, welcome to Fashion and Lifestyle. How are you doing?
Much. I'm good, Siobhan. Thanks very much for having us on.
And Oscar Wilde, Patrick, tell us, how did you get into Oscar Wilde?
Yeah,
Even though I can understand he's flamboyant and an amazing person, but tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, he was a real dandy, of course, probably Ireland's first export. I got involved with Oscar Wilde. I'd played Jack in The Importance of Being Earnest many years ago, and then Pamela Scully from the Abbey suggested that I read up more about him, which I did, and then found the whole story quite tragic, what actually happened to him from a man on his throne to going into the gutter and dying nearly in poverty in Paris then. And so I produced a book. He died in November 1900, which he would have been dead 100 years. So I brought out a book, The World's Favourite 100 Quotes.
Yeah, you have the book here, actually.
Yeah, that's
we're
right.
going to be doing a competition later on. So
Great.
people, if you want, it's 100 quotes. It's the world's
Favourite
100 quotes of
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde. And we'll be running the competition during the show, actually. And it's Patrick's book.
Yeah, so people better observe if they want to win the book.
Yeah, because Patrick's going to be telling the answer within
there'll be a couple of
the
questions.
show.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so what happened then was I brought out the book based on from approximately 1,000 quotes from the picture Dorian Gray to The Importance of Being Earnest to all his famous works, and then put in some photographs and landmarks based on his life through to his grave, which is in Paris in a place called Père Lachaise.
Because he died in Paris.
He did, yeah. He died in a hotel it's now called El Hotel. It's a
Right.
5-star hotel in Saint-Germain
in
Paris, and I've been in the room where he died, and there's
wow.
there's a shrine to him.
Really, in the
and
room?
His original bill, and I lay in the bed, and there's a painting in there. It's hanging right on the wall as you go in.
That must be actually a very special moment for someone who
It
has
was for me.
nearly devoted your life towards Oscar now.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, of course, went out to his grave, and Jim Morrison is buried there as well.
In the same
from the
grave?
Well, in the
Or
same
grave.
place, yeah. In the same place.
in the same graveyard.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's huge. It's a
Wow.
tourist attraction. Chopin is there, Victor Hugo, Les Mis, of course.
Wow.
Sarah Bernhardt, who was a famous actress of her day, who Oscar wrote parts for. Women actresses, of course, loved Oscar Wilde because he wrote great parts for women, and they wouldn't get as many great parts as they did then. And
he was also very dashing.
oh yeah,
really,
the real dandy, typical
Real
how
dandy.
this is how he would dress.
Yeah, because I love the dress as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well,
actually,
this is a jacket. Believe it or not, I got it in Bangkok. I got it made, and I remember I used to go to Galway races with a straw hat.
Oh,
women always slagged me with my jacket.
Slagged it. I said they loved it.
No, well, they were always taking a mickey out of me anyway. But so I've always had it in the wardrobe.
And a cravat. I love a cravat.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And so I kind of dress when I'm doing a show on him. I dress similar to this, maybe a cane.
So this isn't your everyday.
This would
dress.
not be my
This is not your
everyday. No, but I
everyday.
do like good clothes, as most people do, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be into conservative clothes, really.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've been doing some shows on him. I did some TV shows. Did, of course, To Come Dine With Me that a lot of people in Cavan would have seen.
Right, and we actually had Colette on the show here.
Oh, Colette was
St.
on.
Patrick. Colette was on the show here. She was here on St. Patrick's for the St. Patrick's Day special. So she was. And,
Wild woman.
She's a great woman.
Character.
She kept us in chat, and we brought her on the show for her famous green dress. So
Oh,
it
of course.
for St.
Saw that
Patrick's
in the
Day.
last
For
night,
St. Patrick's Day, it was quite famous around the area. But we have actually some pictures of Oscar Wilde and the way he dressed. So we're going to kind of just go through that because you were talking about the cane as well, and the way so we'll just put the first picture up there, and this is one that it's very dashing. It's like
very dapper,
and
very flamboyant for his day, for the day, of course. In 1882, when he arrived for a lecture tour in America, which really was the making of him. I see him there, the cloak, the hat, everything, and he was asked had he anything to declare, and he replied, of course, in true Wilde fashion, I have nothing to declare except my genius. And then he went off on his tour, and then when he came back to London, of course, he was in demand to go to all the best parties of the time, and Then he started...
He was a real party person. Well, he was a real socialite, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was Ireland's first export, really. Probably the Elvis Presley of literature.
Really?
But very kind as well. When he came out of prison now, he had the laws change where children couldn't go to prison anymore.
So that's right, because he begged for the kids that were in prison, wasn't it, to come out of prison?
Yeah,
he'd pay for them.
He paid a fine. That's right, Siobhan. He set up a campaign and he wrote 2 very long letters to the Daily Chronicle at the time. And this when he was persona non grata, and he had to get straight out of London and go to Paris. But he did, and the laws were changed because of Oscar Wilde. Like, he was an extremely kind man that a lot of people don't know about. You know. Misunderstood genius.
Misunderstood genius. I like that, because the reason why he did go to prison was...
Because he had a homosexual affair. He fell in love with a guy called Bosie, Lord Alfred Douglas.
Which is really unusual for the time as well, like to come out with it.
Yeah, maybe not. Like the flare that I have here, they all wore these green carnations in the theatre, a lot of the gay people at the time, and also the ring, the
pinky
finger.
ring.
Yeah, and he has that on the statue. The sculptor did a fantastic job and had the ring as well. But he was married to a beautiful lady called Constance Lloyd, and she was extremely loyal to him. And he had 2 sons, Cyril and Vivian. And then, of course, Lord Alfred Douglas hated his father, and then he had put on a calling card about Oscar Wilde when The Importance of Being Earnest was opened. He had a bouquet of vegetables, and of course Wilde got wind that he was going to disrupt the performance.
Right.
So he had police on each door not to let him in. But he ended up suing him, which was a big mistake. Wilde took him on because his son had such hatred for his father. And of course, the trial collapsed. Then there was a retrial. Then he was charged with homosexual activities, and they couldn't find him guilty. And then the second one they did. So it was a tragedy in 3 acts, really. And then, of course, he went to jail for 2 years, which was the severest sentence at the time. The judge, a guy called Justice Wilde, said it was the worst trial he'd ever tried. But in fact, he was homosexual himself.
Okay.
And an Irishman in an English court, it's difficult to get justice, as history has proved to us.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow, so it is very, very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interest story, yeah.
Yeah, it is. He's got loads. And here's another picture that we're just going to come up with. And this is one, it's a smoking jacket that he's wearing in this.
On the statue in Merrion Square, that's the smoking jacket the sculptor Danny Osborne caught, and he's the knee breeches. And he had said to George Bernard Shaw and William Butler Yeats, when you go into an English household, you make an entrance, and the way an Irishman makes an entrance is with their clothes. Right. So, of course, Oscar in his knee breeches, William Butler Yeats with the little monocule, and, of course, George Bernard Shaw with the +4s that some of the golfers still wear today. So they certainly made it anyway. Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to have went out with these guys and partied with them? Wouldn't you? Yeah. They're great characters, really flamboyant characters.
And great storytellers as well, you know.
You would have had a great time with them.
Yeah.
Colette would have had a wild time
with them. Yeah, absolutely. Colette being a wild woman.
She would definitely had a great time.
Shaw said that all his work was due to the influence of Oscar Wilde. And I'm doing a thing on Tuesday in Limerick for Piada. It's Tony, my fellow contestant from Come
Dine With Me.
Yeah, a fabulous guy, a lovely family comes from, and you know, a very ambitious, driven guy, and he's arranged this for me, and it's down the University of Limerick.
So what exactly is it, Patrick?
It's an evening with Oscar Wilde, and it's going to be on this Tuesday in the University of Limerick at 7:30, and all the proceeds go to Piata. It's suicide awareness, and Tony has strong feelings about that, so he's arranged all of this.
Okay, we actually have the poster off that one that we put up, so the details are on the poster.
Great,
and that's at 7:30 this Tuesday.
Tuesday coming 2nd of April.
And all the proceeds are going to?
Piata. It's for suicide awareness, and that's in the University of Limerick in Castle Troy.
And it's a great noble cause. So many people are, like we have SOSAT here in Cavan, so many people are either they say for every suicide, there's, I think it's 22 people are affected by it, awful, or more, 25 people are affected by it. So it's great. The amount of support, you know, that people can get at that time would be great, and that's great.
Well, Tony does great work there, so I take my hat off.
And how long does the
it'll probably go on for about an hour. There'll be the lecture, the story I'll tell, will be about 45 minutes. I've cut it down, and then I'm relaunching the book, an updated version. There's a new DVD that came out that was filmed by Bygone Memories. Noel Kearns did that, and that's over 2 hours long. As I mentioned in the green room, we interviewed Rosanna Davis and Miss World, so Oscar would love that, being a guy who loved beauty. I wasn't complaining myself either, mind you. And then that was at the Statue in September. And of course,
and the statue is in
Merrion Square.
Oh, that's right, beside the house, the Oscar Wilde house that's there.
That's right. Yeah. It's now the American College, and I was guest speaker for Culture Night there on the 21st of September.
And you do Culture Night every year?
Yeah, in his home. They open it for one day. To
and
the
it's
public.
Normally around the 21st of
around
September,
that.
Isn't it? Yeah, around that.
And that's in his family home. His mother was Lady Jane Francesca, but she was known as Speranza, and it was a name she picked. It's an Italian name. It means hope, and hope was for the Irish nation at the time. And then his dad was knighted. He was Queen Victoria's surgeon, and he was knighted then by Queen Victoria, Sir William Wilde, and he founded the Eye and Ear Hospital for the poor people of Dublin. So they're very kind people. Yeah, I think that's where Oscar got his kindness.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is like kind of, it goes back to when he got the children out of prison.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Even my little daughter were in Madame Tussauds. She's 6. Oh, Daddy, look, Oscar Wilde.
Are they into Oscar Wilde?
Well, my little daughter is, because I have one daughter. I'm separated, but and her mum is French, so she's already learning French as well.
Fantastic.
And then
and have you got her reciting the poetry as well?
Not yet, but she does and she likes Van Gogh, and she's seen his paintings as well. And then I found love through Oscar Wilde. I met my girlfriend through Oscar Wilde.
Really? How was that?
The grave, his birthday is the 16th of October, and that's when I met her. It was the first time I met her, was the 16th of October. And she'd been at the grave in Paris. I've been there a couple of times. And she had called me up and said, was there anything happening for Oscar Wilde? And to be honest, I'd forgotten it was his birthday.
Right. And you were at the grave?
Really? No, it wasn't at the grave. She'd been at the grave, and this is how it led into the conversation. Yeah. And she sent me a photograph. She emailed it over to me of her at the grave. And I thought she was a fine bit of stuff anyway. And then I said it to my friend, what do you think?
So you're going to respond to this?
So I rang and asked her up for dinner.
Responding to.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So she came up for dinner.
Oh, true gentleman.
Well, I gave her raw chicken. I didn't cook it properly. But I spoofed her up. I was a good cook. So that's how we're still together.
Well, it obviously didn't do any harm.
No, we're still together anyway.
So she liked Oscar Wilde. Well, that's great that you have loads in common then. So you do.
Yeah, she loves them, I've teaching her about French wines now.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, nice wine tasting in your house, though.
Yeah, I was doing lots of it, and to come down with me, of course.
Brilliant. Yeah, and you actually wore some the Oscar Wilde cape as well.
Yeah, the big cape.
And you had the cane.
That's
Do we actually have a picture of the cane there to come up? No, we don't. Oh, okay, we don't have a cane.
Not to worry,
we don't have the cane.
I got a lend of that anyway.
Yeah, and it's the one, and you had the cape as well.
That's right, the big cape, so and I walked in and Pauline fell asleep because the piece went on for about 8 minutes. Now, what you saw was probably about 30 seconds. And then afterwards we did the kissing of the stone, because Oscar Wilde's grave is full of kisses.
Right.
It's incredible, actually.
Because if you go onto your Facebook, there's a page with all kisses on it.
On the stone,
well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Oscar Wilde Genius Facebook.
Yeah.
And
so if you want to see more of Patrick's Oscar Wilde informations or evenings or anything like that, you can go to Oscar Wilde Genius. It's Facebook Oscar Wilde Genius, or you can YouTube as well.
Yeah,
Oscar Wilde Genius, and there's some of your lectures on that as well.
Clips about the Beatles, their influence from Oscar Wilde. John Lennon now, his hero. Nelson Mandela. He said what kept him going in prison. The Oscar Wilde quote: "We're all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars."
I love that quote. Yeah. That's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
I love it.
And the Rolling Stones then made a movie about him. They say David Bowie is the Dorian Gray of rock. So he's had a lot of influence with musicians as well. Morrissey carries a photograph of Oscar Wilde everywhere he goes. So,
wow.
You know, a lot of art. John Lennon then on the Sgt. Pepper album, there's a picture of Oscar Wilde beside John Lennon because he was one of Lennon's heroes.
Really?
Yeah, you can see it if you look at the Sgt. Pepper album. You'll see
Oscar Wilde is there.
Right beside John Lennon. Yeah.
Oh, wow! So he's influenced many a man and lady, and wooed many a lady.
Yeah.
So he has. Wow! And then we were talking about Culture Night, and that's on. So you're going to be there next September.
Yeah,
as well.
that's
So
every evening or every year.
So and the house is only open once a year as
that's
well.
Right,
so
to the
but
public.
You can go to the statue, and you actually interviewed many people at the statue as well.
Niall O'Farrell from Dragon's Den. He had also played Jack in The Importance of Being Earnest, and he was talking about that. Loved Wilde, and he was talking about there's a new nightclub in Dublin called Wilde's just opened up there, I think last August.
Really?
Where
is that?
It's off Grafton Street and Wicklow Street at the side of Brown Thomas. And then, of course, Rosanna was saying that she studied Wilde in school. And
Rosanna Day.
Yeah,
Dawson.
His play, The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yeah, because it's his famous, isn't it?
It would be his most famous one.
Famous
yeah. He had two come out. That came out in 1895, and at that stage he was the height of his success and fame. And then Ruination
1895 was the height of his, so he'd only 5 more years then after that before he died.
Died age 46, In 1897 he went to jail 2 years, and then he got straight out, went to Calais, Naples for a little while, and he never got to see his children again. Then Constance, his wife, had died. And he lived a very lonely and sad life for the last year. Drank a lot, of course, a lot of absinthe.
He was an absinthe drinker.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then a lot of people coming and going would come to visit him and relying on the charity of friends. Now, he did write the Ballad of Reading Jail, which was his last piece of work, and that was about the cruelty of prison life. And he found prison extremely difficult, wasn't expecting it to be as hard as it was. He'd fallen on the treadmill and got an ear infection, which eventually killed him.
I'd say prison at that time would have been awful. The conditions would have been awful.
Yeah.
Like I remember sometime reading about when, and it was back to the children, getting the children out, he used to hear them wailing and crying at night time and stuff like that, and that really affected him as well.
He was very upset by that. The night before he was released, he heard a little girl, about 4 or 5, wailing. And he paid her fine and got her out. I think she'd stolen a piece of bread or something minor.
She was only 6, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the idiots and magistrates in those days, of course, I put them in jail for a week. That'll put manners on them.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It affects them and whatever. But and he, he'd a lot of strong views. He bragged a lot, but he also would produce what he said he was going to do. He would do.
And I say he ruffled a lot of feathers as
well,
for sure. Didn't he?
Yeah. Like he was great friends with the Prince of Wales, and then Lily Langtry, who was a famous actress of her day, and she's supposed to be the most beautiful woman in Europe. Apparently he'd fallen in love with her, and he used to wait outside her house with a bunch of lilies, hence the name Lily Langtry.
Right.
And then, of course, when he met Constance, she was the daughter of a well-known Dublin barrister. And then he fell in love with her, and then he married her. His first love was a lady called Florence Balcombe, and she had married Bram Stoker then after that. She blew him out, and he'd given her a cross and chain. He wanted it back. Typical fellas, of course. So he asked her for it back, and she gave it back to him. Yeah.
So he wasn't giving it wholeheartedly.
No,
then
obviously not. No,
I'll
fellas
give it to
are
the
like
next
sometimes. Yeah.
So even Oscar Wilde can get it wrong.
Oh yeah, don't we all?
Oh,
you'll never figure out ladies anyway.
And will we do the competition now this time? So we will, because I think we did. So we lift up. So it's for the book for the DVD.
Yeah. And the DVD as well, and I make sure to put a bookmarker in it. That's
so
the DVD.
If you show me the book here, I'll put it in front and we see. And I'll let you, Patrick, ask the question. So this is the book, and you win the book and the DVD. And the question is, Patrick?
What was Oscar Wilde's wife's name?
Ooh, what was Oscar Wilde's wife's name? So we talked to many of the ladies, but what was the wife, his one love that he married?
And there's the DVD.
This is the DVD. So you get it's Oscar Wilde's wife's name, and if you email that into drumlinmedia@gmail.com. So the competition is what is Oscar Wilde's wife's name, and email to drumlinmedia@gmail.com, and you will win an Oscar Wilde book and DVD by Patrick. So
okay.
Actually, we found the picture of the cane, and this is a very impressive picture.
Oh,
there he is.
That's right.
And there's the ring on his finger, on
That's
his
right,
pinky finger. So it is that you were talking about. That's the symbol of gayness. And
I noticed Senator David Norris always wears the ring there.
Oh, on his finger as well.
That's right. Yeah, but of course it was very flamboyant, the dress sense at the time, and that's the cover of my book anyway.
Yeah,
I've used that.
Yeah, that's
photograph.
the one that is. Yeah, it was so flamboyant in that time. Could you imagine seeing that? Even walking down the street now, like you
and he was so tall as well, and long hair.
Yeah,
whereas
it's very wavy.
In those days they didn't have that, and of course he had a huge presence when he arrived in.
He was very tall as well.
Yeah, he was about 6'4".
Very striking as well, and he also had a look of mystery in his face, which is very attractive.
It was kind of like he's always as if I know more than you. He had this twinkle,
the air about
him. He could answer anything. I remember he was giving a lecture one time and he boasted that he could talk spontaneously on any subject, and the cry went up, "The Queen," and of course without pausing he replied, "The Queen is not a subject." So he had the answers to everything.
So he's really quick-witted and thinking as well. And do you have, I'm going to put you on the spot now, do you have any of your favourite poems or anything like that?
Well, when his sister died, she died when she was 9 years of age, and when Oscar died, there was a pawn ticket in an envelope with some sketches and a lock of his sister's hair, and he had written a little poem for her, and it went, "Tread lightly, she is near, under the snow. Speak gently, she can hear. The daisies grow, all her bright golden hair, tarnished with rust. She that was young and fair, fallen to dust." Now that's just a couple of verses of it.
And it's one of your favourites.
Yeah,
it's
it would
very
be.
Beautiful, isn't it?
The Balderredding jail is, of course, as I said earlier, about the cruelty of prison life and a man who killed his wife in a crime of passion. But it takes you about 35 minutes to read it. Once it's read, you'll never forget it, really.
Really?
It does stay in your mind, all right, for sure.
Yeah. It's a striking one.
Which was his last piece of work. He did write a letter called De Profundis in prison explaining his downfall. And De Profundis comes from the depth. It's a Greek word. And it was a long letter to Bosie, but he made 2 copies because he knew he'd get it and tear it up. When Bosie got it, he threw it in the fire. But he left it to the British Museum, and it was only to be fully published in 1950. So his son Merlin Holland would still have the copyright on that. Right. They had changed the name from Wilde to Holland because of the scandal.
With it?
Yeah, so that was the very last piece that came out.
And that was in 1950 that was done.
That was fully released, yeah.
Right, so it waited like 50 years
or
more.
He said that 50 years after he died.
Yeah, that it could come out to wait on it. So I say it was real suspense actually waiting on that one.
Yeah, it's about a lot. It's kind of love letter as well. It's about 45 pages long.
And it's a love letter.
Yeah.
To Bosie.
Part of it to Bosie, yeah.
And Bosie didn't want it.
Yeah.
Unrequited then, isn't it?
There's more brass than brains in the aristocracy.
Very good.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And he's got great ones, like the quotes are fantastic in your book. Like the world's favourite 100 quotes, like Oscar Wilde. There's great ones in it.
There's a lot.
What is your favourite quote?
My favourite was always the genius one strikes you, but my favourite is I can resist everything except temptation. Can't we all?
Can we all?
You know?
I think someone in the back room was telling me that was their favourite quote there, as well. That's a good one. And that would get you every time. So it would.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's just he's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was just a literary genius like it's
for
a past
sure.
Scandal and everything like that. He was such a hit, wasn't he? In history and everything like that.
He could read a book upside down and just very quickly turning the pages, and his wife one day was watching him. She said, "How can you do it, Oscar?" And he said, "Try me, ask me anything." And he just had the answers for everything. And genius is a word that can be used a lot loosely nowadays, I think. But certainly there's no doubt he was
amazing. And even at the time, do you know, over in London, like Irish, like you said, going over to London and being the most famous playwright in London of that time, which is a hard time to be a playwright anyway, any time is, but to be the most famous one around and Irish at the same time, it's phenomenal, really.
Yeah, he did help to put us on the map for sure, and as I said, he was our first true export, really, but he never ever forgot his Irishness. And his mother said to him, Speranza, that if he went, when he could have gone, there was a boat ready for him. Shaw had met him for lunch that day and his friends, and they had a boat, and he could have gone to Calais and he never would have gone to prison, but he stuck it out. Now his mother said to him, if you go, Oscar, I'll disown you, I'll never speak to you again. Stand up to the English.
Yeah, wow, they were powerful words in itself, weren't they?
Yeah. But a tragic, sad end, the way didn't get to see his children at the end, and then
tell us the last few years of his,
which would have been 1898 to 1900. He spent a little bit of time in Naples. He went back to Bosie, and Constance pleaded with him in prison. He said, I suppose you're going to divorce me, and she said no. And he asked her, could he see the children again? She said, yeah, of course you can, but there's one condition, you never see him again. And he said to her in prison, if I saw him, I'd kill him. But then, of course, he did. He was alone again. He came out. She had died then. And he went to visit her grave. And then he was lonely in Paris on his own a lot. And then, of course, he said to his friend, I'm going to see him again. And he did. And they spent about 3 months together. Now, Bosie inherited a lot of money. I think about £20,000 at the time, which was equivalent to millions in today's money. And of course, Oscar hadn't a penny, and he wrote a letter and he said he's begging like a fat old prostitute to me. Now, Oscar had given him everything. He lavished him with money and presents and everything, and he became penniless because of him. And then he just disowned him, you know.
And was imprisoned and everything for his sexuality and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it's just a fascinating story, Patrick, and I could listen all night to you about it. And it's wonderful that there's someone like you that has devoted and is here and sharing with us about it. And we're going to put the poster up again of next Tuesday night at 7:30, and that's in Limerick. So it is. So if you wanted to hear more on Patrick's Oscar Wilde, you go to Limerick next Tuesday at 7:30, and all the proceeds go to Piata. So all the proceeds go to Piata, and it's a very worthy cause, and it'd be an absolutely interesting and fascinating life, and it's the life of Oscar Wilde, isn't it? Patrick, thanks so much for coming into the show, really, and absolutely, you can walk down Cavan Town any time like this. You'll have the ladies wooing, falling at your feet, especially with that red rose. Thank you very much, and have a happy Easter.
All right, you too.
Thank you for watching Fashion and Lifestyle. I'm Siobhan Harton, and a very happy Easter to you.